Traitors find nothing but death. I stood in the shadow of the pines, peering at the base through the scope. An abandoned industrial hangar, trucks lined up on one side, and on the other, armed, bearded bastards with assault rifles. One was smoking. Another, laughing, was eating noodles straight out of a can. Carefree, as if they weren't the ones who had slaughtered a patrol a few days ago and stolen weapons from the depots. As if they weren't the ones now sitting on millions of dollars worth of rocket launchers, AKs, and crates marked property of U.S. Army. Kevin, Harris rasped in my ear, how do we proceed? Like in training. Only this time, no prisoners. I raised my fist, and the team took their positions. We were not an official unit. On paper, we didn't even exist. But every one of my men was either a former SEAL, a Ranger, or the kind of guy you'd better not piss off even in a bar. We didn't need heroic speeches. A glance was enough. It all began with a short, muffled thud. The sniper, Jensen, dropped the sentry on the roof. Another thud, and the second man fell from the watchtower. Move, I said, and rushed forward. Harris flanked on the right, Ortega on the left. We moved in quickly, quietly, like death at midnight. At first, only knives. The shift at the trucks didn't even manage to cry out. One man tried to lift his rifle, but I drove my blade between his ribs and whispered in his ear, "Don't worry. Where you're going, bullets are useless." After that, adrenaline and smoke. Rifles roared. Shells rained down like golden hail. One of the bastards tried to slip through the side passage. Harris shot him in the knees and, grinning, said, "Hey, you wanted to run, didn't you? Come on then, sprinter, show us what you've got." The gang leader, a fat slob in a stained tank top, tried to hide behind crates. Ortega lobbed a smoke grenade his way, then charged into the cloud with a shotgun. One blast. The body flew back against the wall. I always moved last. Always. To see how my men worked. And so that if anyone dared touch them, I would be the last thing he ever saw. 15 minutes later, the base was silent. Only the wheezing of someone half alive and the hollow click of an empty bolt. We stood among the corpses, breathing hard. All clear, Jensen exhaled. The trucks are ours. Check the cargo, I ordered. And leave the trophies alone. We're not looters. We're cleaners. We returned to base at dawn. The truck's engines purred like cats after a heavy meal. I felt the ease of victory spreading through my veins. Harris was already dreaming of beer. Jensen had pulled off his helmet and said, "I dream of Eliza and an ice-cold Miller." In that order. I just smirked. Less than a mile remained to the gates when a voice hissed over the radio. "Kevin, there's a guest at the checkpoint. John Carter. Says he's been waiting for you." Carter. My handler. An old wolf. A man who knew the smell of blood and the price of life. I had known him 20 years. I had never liked him, but I had respected him. He waited for us at the hangars, hands behind his back, in a suit as if he had come to a funeral. He approached, shook my hand, cast a grim glance at the men. "Good work, Kevin. No casualties. For now." I nodded toward the trucks. "Everything's intact." Carter squinted, as though weighing whether to say more. Then he nodded. "Today, you take the day off. Treat yourselves. You've earned it." I never liked to relax immediately, but this time. Well, hell. We were alive. We had done the impossible. We had brought the weapons back. "Kev," Ortega said, pulling out a beer, "to victory?" "To victory," I agreed. The pops. Not from bottles. From rifles. I didn't understand at first. I only saw Harris collapse like a puppet, a bullet through his temple. Jensen shouted, reached for his weapon. His gut exploded in blood. I was thrown to the ground. Adrenaline burst in my chest like a ruptured vessel. I rolled over and saw 3, 5, 8 soldiers. No, not ours. Black uniforms, faces hidden, firing point blank at my team. I lunged for my weapon, and in that instant a bullet slammed into my shoulder. It felt like being struck with an iron bar. I fell, breath torn away. Everything swam. "Alive, the bastard," I heard a voice. After him. I don't remember how I got out. Blood dripped like from an open tap. Pain gnawed at my shoulder, but I ran. Hid. Vaulted fences until I reached an old workshop I remembered from the days when the base was still operational. The floor was oil-stained, the roof leaking, but it was cover. I pressed against the wall. Checked my ammo. 5 rounds. Better than none. Made a tourniquet. The pain dulled, but didn't fade. I knew. They would come. And they came. Footsteps. Boots. Silence. Then a voice. Kevin. Carter. I stepped out of the shadow, half-crouched, pistol in hand. He stood in the center of the room, surrounded by his bastards. You ran far. You're getting old, Kev. You've lost your damn mind. He laughed. This was meant to be the last mission. For you. For all of you. The team needed to be erased. The weapons, lost. Then found a few months later in some very profitable war zones. No one in the way, no one whining about regulations. My men, my brothers. My money, Kevin. My retirement. I've earned it. And you? You've earned a bullet at best. And do you know who agrees with me? He took a step forward. Olivia. She knows everything. She doesn't care. She doesn't need a hero with medals. She wants champagne and hotels. With a real man. Spasmed. I pressed him down so he wouldn't crash. He was gone before he even realized someone saw him off. I took his rifle. Checked the mag full. Pistol in the holster too. Thanks, buddy. Hope you weren't planning on living forever. From there, it was textbook. One stayed in the cab smoking. I shot through the windshield. Two more thought it was an explosion, rushed out, and got their share. One in the chest, the other in the shoulder and face. The rest dashed to the crates, but I was already moving. Changed position, fired a burst. They started panicking. One ran screaming, he's a sniper. Tripped over his buddy's corpse. Another threw a grenade, toward where I wasn't anymore. Thanks for the smoke screen, genius. I liked how they squealed, how they scrambled, how they panicked. One even tried to surrender, hands in the air. I yelled, no refunds on donuts, and shot him between the eyes. One left, a fat bastard, hiding behind the door. I shot beside him. He screamed and bolted, slipped, crashed down. I walked over, planted my boot on his chest. Hi there, champ. Just us now. How's that for a private night out? Don't kill me. Please. He wheezed like a sack of potatoes just told it's headed for mashed, not stew. Don't kill you? Sure. Let's make a deal. I ask questions. You scream when I hurt you. Eventually, you crack and spill everything. How's that for a plan? Go to hell. I pulled out the knife. Slowly. Cleanly. His brown eyes lit up with a flicker of hope that maybe I was joking. I wasn't. I drove the blade into his thigh. Not fast. No jerk. Smooth. Like twisting a corkscrew into a bottle of good wine. He screamed. Twitched. Hey. Don't move. We're cooking here. I'd hate for the knife to slip. This is meat, not a can of beans. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything, he croaked. Carter. He went to an old lab. Called Cold Ridge. Ex-CIA bunker. That's his base. Off the books. Officially decommissioned. But he's got guards, tech, everything there. I twisted the knife a quarter turn deeper. He moaned. Coordinates. North, about 60 miles from here. Address, it's in his system. But I know, there's only one route. Through a tunnel under the hill, on the old track. Access code, 471, JR9. Thanks, I smiled. That's really helpful. You know, they give out candy for that. Or quick deaths. Please no. I yanked the knife free and drove it into his throat. Fast. No theatrics. No drama. Just ended the conversation. I walked to the truck. Opened the door. Blood on the seats. A pool of brains. Didn't faze me. I found the medkit. Pulled out antiseptic, bandages, a needle, thread. My own damn doctor. Bullet hit the bone, but missed the artery. Lucky. Or maybe not, because I was still breathing. I clenched my teeth while cleaning the wound. It sliced. It burned. But pain's just a reminder you're not in hell yet. I stitched it up badly, but tight. Wrapped it. Rolled down my sleeve. Climbed out. Tossed the bodies from the back. Pulled one that looked my size. Took his jacket. Put it on. They'd be looking for me anyway. But now they'd have to squint. I got behind the wheel. Started the engine. The truck jolted. Heavy. But it had fuel. It had bullets. And it had a driver with only one direction left. Cold Ridge. I turned on the headlights. Cracked the window. Breathed in the night air and said, "Let's ride, Kevin. Time to collect your retirement." The wheels spun. Gravel crunched. And the only thought in my head was this. Carter didn't just make a mistake. He signed his death warrant. I'm coming. The tires hissed on the dusty road like the earth itself knew. A ghost was at the wheel. I gripped the steering wheel tight, though my fingers throbbed with exhaustion. The blood on the bandages had clotted. The shoulder ached all the way to my neck, but I didn't care. Nothing compared to the way rage gnawed at my skull. The truck was old, but steady, like a war horse that could still smell blood. When I saw the hangar rising behind the trees, my heart pounded harder. Cold Ridge. A ghost base. Buried in paperwork, but reborn in mud and blood. 2 men at the gate. Black uniforms. Faces hidden. Rifles loose in their arms. Naive. I pulled my cap lower, visor down. The stubble and grime on my face did the rest. In that light, I was just another butcher on an errand. One of them leaned toward the window. Took you long enough. Where's the rest? I grunted, voice hoarse, eyes down. Stayed to check the bodies. Half ran off. One still taking a shit in the bushes. He winced, then stepped back. Screw it. Drive in. Generator's acting up. Don't kill the engine. I nodded. The doors opened. I drove in. Inside, it looked like hell's showroom. 2 watchtowers, an armored garage, tents, barracks, and off to the side, a big warehouse. On the side, a symbol I hadn't seen since my early missions in Iraq. 3 crossed arrows. Weapons storage. I parked in the shadows, got out, like I belonged. Inside, it was cool. Row upon row of crates wrapped in tape, smelling of oil, metal, and death. Everything you'd need for a small civil war. I walked the aisles like a gourmand at a culinary festival. Grenades, timed, pin-pulled, thermobaric. An M240 machine gun, a beauty, like an old friend. Rifles, detonators, C4 blocks, even a dusty claymore sitting in the corner. Well, Kevin, I whispered to myself, time to play God of Thunder. I worked fast, but precise. C4 went in the corners. Grenades, rigged as traps. 1 claymore, right in the gap of the gate, in case someone got curious. Everything wired into a single system with a timer and remote trigger. I knew there'd be no second chance. It was either me or them. As I stepped out, I glanced back and said, God bless your twisted heart, America. Then pressed the button. At first, silence, like the breath before a scream. And then, boom. The warehouse erupted with the fury of a nuclear firecracker. A wall of flame shot outward, collapsing the roof, shredding vans, tearing doors from their hinges. Metal shrieked, men screamed, sirens wailed, as if the base itself realized it was dying. Panic spread like wildfire. Someone charged out with a rifle, caught a bullet between the eyes. Another crawled from beneath an armored Humvee, burst to the knees, then to the face. We're on your side, he screamed. And I'm your hemorrhoid. I answered, finishing him off. I moved like a predator, emerging from smoke, vanishing into shadow. Out the corner of my eye, I saw a guard yelling into his radio. We've got an explosion. Hostile incursion. I crawled up and shot him in the throat. The mic dropped beside him. Confirmed, I muttered into it. Incursion successful. Going deeper. Hold tight, boys, then crushed the radio under my boot. To my left, I spotted a squad crouched behind a concrete barrier, arguing about where the threat was. You think it's a Spec Ops unit? Said one. Could have just been an accident. I lobbed a grenade. There's your accident. Bodies scattered. Screams cut short. I walked past the smoldering remains like I was on my way to buy a loaf of bread. Behind the hangar, 2 men with a machine gun. One leaned out too far. I took his face off. The other bolted sideways, shouting. He's alone. Just one guy? You scared? No. I'm just too sexy for this war. I yelled, tossing an incendiary under him. The fire burst up like hell's own breath, and his screams turned into a symphony. I crept toward the barracks. 2 were peeking out the window, one waving his hands, trying to explain something, the other trembling like he had dysentery. I raised my rifle and stitched them both with a burst. One managed, no, wait, rat-tat-tat. Couldn't wait. Sorry, my schedule's tight. Behind me, the door creaked. I turned, 3 of them. One armored, one helmeted, one with a shotgun. I dove behind a crate, rolled, fired, only hit the vest. Bastards here, one shouted. Well done, Sherlock fucking Holmes. I replied, then shot him in the neck. The others opened fire. I flanked, slipping along the wall, got behind them. First took a buttstock to the skull. Second turned, too slow. Bullet pierced his eye socket. Sorry, brother. Eye for an eye, I muttered, stepping over him. One left, hiding under a truck. I pressed my ear to the metal, heard him whispering. God, please. I tapped the bumper gently. God's on vacation. Kevin's working. Dropped to my knee, fired under the vehicle. Splash of blood. Silence. Blood was everywhere, on my boots, my face, my weapon. But I felt clean. Because each death here was purification. For Harris. For Jensen. For those who just wanted to go home. For those who got sold like meat on a shelf. The perimeter fell silent. Towers dead. Antennas charred. Vehicles ablaze. Body still. I stood in the ruins. Breathing. Carter, I said aloud, get ready. Your time's almost up. The main building stood like a tombstone. Gray, concrete, massive. It knew blood had been spilled and begged for another taste. I reloaded, slung my 97 over my back, clipped a couple grenades to my belt, and stepped inside. The lights flickered. The air reeked of metal, sweat, and fresh fear. A perfect day to die, unfortunately for them. Not me. First guy came out of the restroom, buckling his belt. He caught my eye, and the only thing he managed to say was, "What the?" Thunk. Bullet shredded half his jaw. He collapsed onto the tiles, spelling holy shit in blood. Down the hall, two more. One glued to a tablet, the other loitering with his rifle slung over his shoulder. "Hey, boys, where's the coffee machine?" I asked, stepping around the corner. They didn't even get a chance to be surprised. One, bullet to the eye. The other, burst to the chest. He spun like a circus monkey and slammed into the wall with a wet gurgle. I kept moving. Behind the next door, a monitor room. Surveillance crew. One was eating noodles. The other watching porn on a second screen. When they saw me, their faces were a mix of fear and complete confusion. "I'm here about your death subscription. Who handles the paperwork?" T-T-T-A-T. 2 shots. The porn screen flickered, like the actress got scared too. I passed through a room full of crates, computers, desks with papers. Heads turned. Someone reached for a weapon. Someone opened his mouth to speak. Surprise, motherfuckers. Burst fire. Metal tore flesh. Screams, shrieks, and one guy yelling, "Don't shoot. We're just IT." "So am I," I muttered. Information technician of retribution. Thunk thunk. They vanished. Only the chairs remained, rolling across the floor, blood dripping from keyboards. Off to the side, a long corridor. I heard running. Someone yelling, "Alert! Internal breach." No kidding? Really? And here I thought I was your tour guide. I tossed a smoke grenade. Coughing. Chaos. One guy burst through the smoke, straight into me. I drove my knee into his gut, then cracked him across the ear with the stock. Crunch. He dropped like a bag of rotten apples. Ahead, a stairwell. I sprinted up. Gunfire from the floor above. I dove to the side mid-run, tossed a grenade up the stairs. Boom. Bodies fell like meat confetti. One writhed on the steps. I stepped up, leaned over. "Guess who's coming to dinner?" "PL, please." "Nope. I'm on a strict diet. No assholes." Thunk. I kicked in the next door. Break room. A few cowering behind a couch. "Up, ladies." Group photo. Burst to the chest, like a hot knife through fat. One managed, "Mom." That mom stayed in the past. I moved like death with a rifle. No one expected me. No one could stop me. They tried to scream, shoot, beg. None of it worked. I was relentless. Swift. Angry. Precise. On the lower floor, a mess hall turned makeshift HQ. Weapons, men, coffee. "Hey you," one in a vest said. "Who let you in H?" Thunk. I signed my own pass. Two at the desks lunged for their weapons. One took a bullet to the throat, didn't even get the chance to cough. The other grabbed a grenade. I fired, a clean shot, and his arm flew off along with whatever dreams of heroism he might have had. The grenade dropped at his feet. He barely managed. Ah shit. Boom. What was left of his brains dripped down the plaque that read Chief of Logistics. The room emptied. I stepped into the office. He was there. Fat. Balding. In a suit. The manager. Sweat poured off him like a cheap hotel air conditioner on its last leg. He bolted for the back door. I sprang after him. He slipped, smacked into the wall, crumpled. I walked up, lifted my rifle, pressed the barrel against his nostril. "Hey there, boss man. Hope you like metal up close. D don't shoot. I'm just finance. Yeah, and I'm a massage therapist. Speak fast. Where's Carter?" He took off. "With the weapons. There's a deal going down." "With who?" "Nasser Dalvid." "Shit." He started twitching. He went to a meeting, south of El Paso. They've got a black site. Old factory. The address, damn it. 48, Industrial Way, El Risco, Texas. I swear. "You know what's interesting?" I said, pressing the muzzle just a little harder. You've already lied twice. But that address, it sings. That's all I needed. I told you everything. I helped. Please let me go. I nodded. Sure. Helping's within my skill set. He exhaled in relief and caught a bullet in the forehead. Helped you get over your fear, I muttered. Try not to shake next interview, Tubby. I wiped the weapon clean, slung the bag of ammo over my shoulder, and walked out. The vehicle waited in the shade, engine still warm. I got in, started it up. 48 Industrial Way. I'm coming, nah sir. Let's settle this like adults. The tires squealed as I tore down the road, not looking back. Nothing but corpses behind me. Ahead, my target. By the time I reached the place, the sun was already dropping, like the sky itself knew it was going to be a bloody night. The truck rumbled over the switchback roads, gravel hissing beneath the wheels. My grip tightened on the wheel with every mile. The wound itched again, but pain didn't stand a chance. There was only one thought in my head. Carter. That bastard who sold us all out for a few sacks of greenbacks and Olivia as a side deal. Approaching the site, the checkpoints made my skin crawl. Guards, too many. Black SUVs, armored vans, snipers on rooftops. All of it in the middle of goddamn nowhere. An old processing plant baking in the desert. The ass end of the world. But it made sense. No prying eyes. Just sand, concrete, and death. I parked off the main road. On foot from here. A small gully to the side offered a view of the perimeter. I dropped to my belly, pulled out the binoculars, and started counting. Not bodies, ways to kill them. Patrols on the platforms. Some with rifles, some with RPGs. Down below, heavy machine gun mounted on a jeep. 2 guys with it. One aiming, the other picking his teeth like he didn't give a shit he'd be chewing asphalt in minutes. In the distance, a warehouse, locked down tight. Trucks, crates, steel containers. All of it, stolen from the last stash Carter looted. I pulled out my launcher. Old RPG, tricked out with some personal mods. I kept it close for years. This was its moment. All right, frozen dumplings, I muttered. Let's heat things up. I aimed at the first jeep, the one with the mounted gun. Deep inhale, slow exhale, and boom. The jeep exploded like a birthday candle in hell. The second guy didn't even know what hit him. Half his body was already airborne, heading toward the nearest container. Panic erupted instantly. Screams, gunfire in every direction. I'd already reloaded and sent another round flying into the guard booth. Whoosh. Crack. Much better, I mumbled. Always happy to assist with logistics. Now they scattered, like ants in a stomped anthill. A swarm of armed idiots with an IQ lower than an iguana's resting heart rate. I slung the launcher over my back and sprinted downhill, leaping over rocks, spitting out sand, feeling the old pain spark back to life inside me. Didn't matter. Adrenaline had the wheel now. I pulled my Scar H with suppressor and started the sweep. First up, the guard at the north entrance. Leaning behind a column, shouting gibberish into a radio. Arabic, maybe Spanish. I snuck behind him, clamped a hand over his mouth, drove the knife into the base of his skull. Quick, precise, silent. Just a gurgle and warm blood on my boots. He never knew he died. Next, by the transformer. Pacing, scanning, rifle swinging like a metronome. Perfectly exposed. One shot, and his face vanished from existence. A crack, a fall, nothing else. I kept moving, circling the perimeter, dropping them one by one. One was sitting and smoking with his back to the walkway. Bad habit, smoking on duty. Especially when I'm near. Don't worry, brother. I whispered. Nicotine's not the one killing you today. Shot to the temple. He slumped to the concrete. Cigarette still burning between his fingers. A picture worthy of a painting, stupidity, and its price. Then I hit an open area. 5 bodies already on the sand. 2 others trying to duck behind a truck. One popped out to aim, took a bullet to the throat. The other dove behind a concrete slab. I tossed a grenade. No drama, just boom, and meat confetti. Near the left wall, a guy stood with a shotgun, already taking aim. I rolled sideways, missed his blast, returned fire, rounds in the chest. He dropped, writhing, gasping. PPP please. I walked over, leaned down. If it's mercy you want, try Netflix. I'm running a different program. One in the head. Silence. Next came the hangar. 2 guards at the doors. I lobbed a smoke grenade and walked through the haze like a goddamn specter. One coughed. The other waved his arms blindly. I stepped out of the smoke, slit the first one's throat, shot the second in the groin. He shrieked. I bent down. Not planning, kids, huh? Now it's official. And put a bullet through his head. I kept moving, like I was in a trance. The dry sand, the smell of burning fuel, the screams, the bullets, the blood. So much blood. My boots slid in it, slick with what used to be men. One tried to run. I shot him in the leg. He dropped, crawling like a smashed roach. Were you running, Olympian? I shouted. Finals are right here. He turned just in time to see the bullet hit his forehead. Near the comms tower, a guy was shouting into a radio, calling for backup. I came up behind him, cracked his skull with the rifle butt. He dropped. I grabbed him by the hair. Go on, say aloha to your friends. Quiet now. No drama. He rasped, stammered something, and I mashed his face into the mic. Your boy's dead. Try someone else. One bullet. His head exploded like an overripe melon. Footsteps to my left, 3 of them. I ducked behind a crate and waited. One came closer. I lunged, grabbed him by the neck, and used him as a shield. The others opened fire, and his body sprouted holes like a bloody sieve. Then, grenade at their feet. Meat rain. If I had a loyalty card for bastards, I muttered, wiping blood from my face, I'd already have a discount. Now all that was left was to finish off the ones who thought they could hide in the underground tunnel. 3 had jumped down there, thinking salvation waited below. I followed. Their footsteps echoed in the narrow corridor, but I was already there, behind them, like a ghost. The first turned and caught a bullet to the gut. He screamed, started crawling, and I stepped on his head, turning skull to paste. The second burst from a side door, firing wildly. I sidestepped, tossed a frag, and heard the walls get repainted with guts. The third surrendered. Hands up, trembling. I was just guarding. I didn't know anything. Really? I asked, stepping in closer. Then you definitely deserve a monument. And shot him in the leg. He dropped, howling, and I leaned in. Now cry me a river. Maybe I'll get misty. He cried. Real tears. Did I feel sorry? No. He made his choice. I stepped back into the light. Only a few left. One guy was behind the wheel of a van, trying to drive away. I lobbed an incendiary grenade through the window. The van lit up like a damn birthday candle. He jumped out, on fire, rolling on the ground. I walked over, pulled my pistol. Make a wish. Bang. Silence. Now I stood in the middle of what used to be a fortified base. Now, a graveyard for idiots. The wind picked up ash and dust and the thick scent of burning fuel. I lit a cigarette, took a drag, and muttered. Well, Carter, your friends are gone. Just you left. And we're not done dancing yet. You son of a bitch. I exhaled the smoke and moved on. The door to the main building of the factory was slightly ajar, like it was inviting me in, like it already knew nothing inside would change a thing. That everything hiding behind those concrete walls was already doomed. I wiped my blood-slick palm on my jacket, adjusted my rifle, and stepped inside. Chaos reigned. Shouting. Orders in different languages. The clatter of weapons. They didn't know I was already in. That was my advantage. The first guy I took out was sitting in the corridor, chewing on a cracker. A bullet to the temple, and the cracker stayed wedged between his teeth, a parody of a Last Supper. Next, some mechanic by a generator. Didn't even look up as I approached. Just heard the click of my bolt and muttered. Damn thing's glitching again. Bang, and no more glitches. I walked the corridor like I owned it. On the stairs, 2 guys. One had a rifle, the other scratching his ass. Bad luck for both. A burst, both went tumbling. One rolling end over end, the other sliding down the handrail with a zzz. They landed cuddling. Romantic as hell. On the second level, storage zone. I kicked the door open. Inside, 5 men, moving crates, chatting, not noticing me. I tossed a smoke grenade into the center. 3 seconds later, a frag. Those who didn't die instantly started screaming. One tried crawling to the door. I walked up and stepped on his neck. Stay down. Dead men don't crawl. Click, and done. The others tried hiding behind the racks. I moved slowly between the rows, like a janitor come to take out the trash. One jumped out with a machete. I sidestepped, kneed him in the gut, slammed him to the ground, and drove a knife into his ear. He convulsed, jerked, then went still. You wanted close combat? Here it is. Someone was firing from the far room. I ducked, tossed a mini grenade. A muffled blast, followed by a wheeze and a whisper. Mommy. I peeked in. Mommy's busy, kid. Tonight, you get me. Last on this floor was a guy by the staircase. He aimed. I aimed. The difference? I was faster. The bullet went straight through his throat. He tried to clamp his hands over the wound, but the blood poured like a horror movie prop. 5 seconds later, he slumped down the wall, leaving a crimson smear behind like a signature. I'm a dumbass. On the 3rd floor, Nasser. I recognized him instantly. Black suit. Gold rings. Nose like an angry pteranodon. He was shouting into a radio. Evac me now. All units to extraction. The base is compromised. I fired into the ceiling. Everyone froze. Some started twitching. Nasser bolted toward the stairs. I chased. He made it into the corridor, almost reached the door, when I slammed into him from behind. He went down hard, choking. I straddled his chest and pulled out a grenade. Well, Nasser. Nice teeth. Let's insert something more interesting. I jammed the grenade into his mouth. He thrashed, tried to spit it out, but I'd already wrapped his jaw with duct tape, tight enough to make his ears pop. Want to say some last words? Make 'em brief. We're on a timer. I pulled the pin. Bye-bye, pumpkin. I stepped back. A few seconds later, his head exploded like a melon on concrete. Brains splattered across the wall, and chunks of teeth pinged off my boot. Still better than anything you said alive. And that's when I saw them. Carter. Jacket torn, still breathing. And Olivia. My wife. Ex-wife, to be exact. The one who betrayed me, slept with a rat, and judging by how she held that rifle, was perfectly happy to wipe me off the face of the earth. They were running across the central hall. I charged after them. Olivia. I bellowed. Bad wives don't run, they answer. Carter spun and jumped behind a mounted machine gun. Die, Kevin, he roared, spraying the whole room. Metal screamed, concrete shattered, chunks of wall flew everywhere. I dove behind a pillar, rolled, and hurled a grenade. Boom. Carter and Olivia were thrown to the side, dazed but alive. Covered in dust, Carter growled, blood trickling down his cheek. Olivia clenched her teeth, raised her weapon. We'll kill you. I never want to see you or your daughter again. We don't need you. I burst from cover, rushed in, kicked Carter square in the face. Olivia tried to fire. I disarmed her, grabbed her by the hair, and flung her aside. Carter reached for a knife, but I already had his face pressed into the floor. Where's my daughter? She escaped, he wheezed. But they're coming for her. I'm the only one who can stop them. Just give me a chance. I grabbed some straps off a nearby shelf and tied them up like a pair of dead rats strapped to a firework. Olivia thrashed like a lunatic. Let go. You're getting nothing out of this, Kevin. If you kill us, you'll never find your daughter. You know what I realized, Olivia? I grinned. You sound just like a crappy HR manager. Lots of threats. No results. Nearby was a missile system. Massive ballistic beast. Built for very big fireworks. I started working the control panel. Mode. Self-destruct. 30 seconds to launch. Carter screamed. No. Wait. I can help. I'll tell you everything. Stop. I fastened them tight to the rocket's body. 2 screaming bags of regret strapped to a steel angel of death. Carter, you had a chance to help. You chose cash. Olivia, you chose a lot of things. All badly. She shrieked. Kevin, you're insane. This is your last chance. You'll never find her. I paused. Looked both of them in the eyes. This isn't my last chance. It's your last breath. I hit the button. The rocket shuddered, like it hadn't expected today to end in fire. It launched. They screamed, like 2 sacks of shit getting fired into the heavens. Boom. The firework was glorious, red, orange, and the remains of Carter scattered somewhere across the horizon. As for Olivia, maybe her conscience came crawling back to her in that final second. But it was too late. Far too late. I pulled out the satellite phone and dialed the encrypted channel. This is Sigma 1. The site is clear. I repeat, all weapons secured. Coordinates, 32.33207, minus 106.69832. The trucks need extraction. Repeat, trucks are in position. Do you copy? Copy that, Sigma 1. Confirmed. A team is en route. I dropped the phone, grabbed my rifle, and walked away. Now, the only thing left was to find Amber. My girl didn't belong in this filth. And if anyone tried to touch her, they'd regret being born. The end was near. But my war was just beginning. I had always known Amber wasn't just my daughter. She was sharp, clever, stubborn to the point of madness. Everything I was, only smarter and better looking. We'd trained together since she was 8, not because I wanted a soldier, but because I knew the world was too rotten to count on its mercy. And we had a pact. One single secret known only to us. The hunting cabin in the mountains, 20 miles from anything resembling civilization. No neighbors. No phones. No power. Just forest, silence, and the scent of pine. There was a weapons cache, canned food, a generator, and a map. Amber knew. If everything went to hell, that's where she was to run. I drove a stolen car, bloodstained, headlights busted, fender riddled with holes. Pain buzzed through my body, and not just the physical kind. My heart twisted at the thought that she might be there now. Alone, scared, and those bastards were already on her trail. I knew they'd find the cabin. They knew about Amber. Carter, that son of a bitch, said the hunt was on. But I wasn't here to play tag. I was here to end it. To bring my daughter home. The trail to the cabin was barely passable. I left the car halfway and continued on foot. The wind rustled the branches, crows circled overhead, and every shadow whispered danger. But I knew they were here. They'd gotten here first. The first one I saw was by the stream. He was drinking water, rifle in hand, unshaven, a skull tattoo on his neck. I crept up behind him, clamped a hand over his mouth, and slowly slit his throat. He gurgled, dropped his weapon, and collapsed into the water. A red stream drifted downstream like a trail for the others to follow. Next, on the hill, he was looking through binoculars, oblivious to the death at his back. I took his own knife, came in from the side, and drove the blade into his ear. No sound, just his eyes bulging before he crumpled sideways. I moved through the forest like a shadow. In the bushes, 2 of them, chatting, munching on chips. One bragged that he'd be the first to shoot her. Cute little thing, he said. I stepped out of the shadow, shot the first one through the eye, and smashed the second in the jaw with my rifle butt, his teeth scattering like rice. He tried to crawl away, like a cockroach. Where do you think you're going, scum? I muttered, driving my knife into the base of his skull. Don't forget the bathroom on your way. They'd planted mines along the trail. Crude, but effective. I circled around, flanked them. 3 were walking in, cocky, thinking they were in control. One tripped, boom. Legs flew one way, the body another. The others started screaming, firing blindly. I emerged from behind a tree and lit one up with a burst. The second dropped to his knees, begging. Please. I didn't want this. They just paid me. And I'm just saving my daughter, I said, and put a bullet in his forehead. In the distance, near the cabin, one guy was running with a radio, calling for backup. I shot him in the leg. He collapsed, crawling. I walked up, grabbed the radio, pressed the button. Carter's dead. Who's next? Silence on the line. Panic. He looked at me, pleading. Where is she? I barked. She's in the house. 3 went in. She's inside. I didn't know. I shot him in the heart. Clean. Cold. No time for anything else. I sprinted the last 100 yards, climbing the slope, and with each step the sounds grew louder. Voices, movement, heavy breathing. The cabin door was open. Wide open. And I knew 3 of them were inside. I crept to the window and peeked in. One was rummaging through cabinets. Another was prying up floorboards. The third held a gun on Amber, who stood in the corner, a knife gripped tight. She wasn't crying. No. She stood just as I taught her, breathing steady, knife firm in hand. Only her fingers trembled. It's over, sweetheart, one of them said. Daddy's rotting already, just like Mommy. I spun, kicked the door. It crashed off its hinges. One bastard turned and got a bullet between the eyes. The second tried to fire, but Amber lunged, stabbed him in the thigh, and I finished him with a shot to the neck. Blood sprayed the wall like a damn Jackson Pollock. The third tried to grab her as a hostage, but I was already there. I seized him by the hair, slammed his head into the table, snapped it in half. He struggled to rise, got a heel to the face. I pinned him, shoved the barrel in his mouth. You're not even worth the bullet. Pulled the trigger. Blood. Silence. Then a sob. Amber ran to me, arms tight around my chest, burying her face in my jacket. She was shaking. I thought you were, she whimpered. Well, sorry, I said. I did promise I'd take you to prom. Though after this, prom's gonna feel like a stroll through the supermarket. She laughed through the tears. I left a trap in the woods. Mines. Yeah, I saw. Nice work. You're definitely my blood. You've got thick blood, Dad. You should have seen how I turned Carter into fireworks. Her eyes widened. Really? Yeah. He and Mom took off together. On a rocket. Romantic, right? We stepped outside. Behind us, blood, corpses, smoke. Ahead, freedom. I knew this was it. For today, it was over. 3 weeks passed. We found a lakeside cabin. Small. Wooden. With a porch and a view of the water. Nothing special, except peace. In the mornings, I fixed the gas stove. It always complained. I was fiddling with the valve when Amber came out, yawning. Morning. Killer, she said, wrapped in a blanket. Morning. You talking about me, or you? Both. I still got blood under my nails. Call it your new manicure. Nature's version. Killer look. She sat down beside me. You knew I'd make it to the cabin, didn't you? Of course. We're a team. I always knew if anyone made it to the end credits, it'd be you. And you? Me? I'm stubborn. Not even a grenade to the ass can stop me. She laughed. Thanks, Dad. For what? For coming. I looked at her, ruffled her hair, and said, Hey, I wasn't gonna leave you with those idiots. They can't even brew a decent cup of coffee. We sat in silence. The wind rippled the lake. Birds sang. Somewhere in the distance, a fishing rod clicked. I lit a cigarette and said, You think this is it? For now? But if anyone comes, you'll be ready. That's my girl. Now go make us some breakfast. Killers get hungry too. She snorted and headed to the kitchen, and I stayed on the porch, staring out at the lake. No more gunfire in my head. No screams, no explosions. Just silence. And it was the best sound of my life. A new life had begun. No lies. No Carter. No Olivia. Just me and my daughter. And if anyone else tries to take something from us, they'll find out what it really means to fuck up.